in the dead silence of a world still learning to measure value before dollars, before digital codes flashing on screens, before the word banker meant power, there was only trust, fear, and a relentless struggle for survival. But behind that struggle, hidden between the lines of history, lies a truth darker and more transformative than most people will ever know. A truth about how wealth was created. It begins in the shadows of medieval markets, where merchants traveled for months across dangerous lands to buy and sell goods. Gold was heavy. Silver was risky. Robbers followed every caravan like wolves chasing prey. And every merchant carried the same fear. What if I lose everything before I even arrive? But somewhere in Europe, in a small workshop that smelled of ink, metal, and melted wax, a new idea was being forged. Not a weapon, not a tool. A system, a psychological invention that changed how humans saw wealth. Forever it was simple, yet unbelievably powerful. Instead of carrying gold, merchants began leaving their coins with goldsmiths, craftsmen who stored precious metals in vaults as part of their trade. In exchange, the goldsmith issued a receipt, a promise, a piece of paper that said, "You own this much gold. You can collect it anytime." At first, it was only a convenience, a way to travel lighter and sleep a little easier at night. But soon, something unsettling happened. People realized that these receipts were far easier to trade than the gold itself. They were faster, lighter, and safer. Why risk moving heavy coins when you could just hand over a piece of paper? And then the unthinkable happened. People began accepting the receipt itself as payment. The paper became more valuable in practice than the metal it represented. A new form of wealth had quietly been born. The goldsmiths watched this shift with growing amusement and temptation. They began to notice something strange. Very few people ever came to withdraw their gold. Most just traded the receipts back and forth, from merchant to merchant, city to city. The gold just sat there, collecting dust in their vaults. And with that discovery, the spark of the world's first modern banking system ignited. Because the goldsmiths realized a dangerous secret. If people rarely asked for their gold back, then the goldsmiths could lend out more receipts, more money than the gold they actually had. It was the birth of money created from nothing. A concept so audacious it borders on magic. At first, they were cautious. They issued a few extra receipts, lending them out and charging interest. The borrowers were happy to get the loan, the merchants were happy to accept the receipts, and the goldsmiths grew richer. No one suspected a thing. But profits is a powerful addiction. Soon, these goldsmiths now, turning into the world's first bankers, lent out far more wealth than existed in their vaults. Paper money multiplied. The amount of gold stayed the same, and society began relying on money that wasn't backed by anything real. And just like that, wealth became an idea, a shared belief. It spread across Europe like wildfire. Kings realized they could borrow fortunes to fund their armies without raising taxes. Merchants expanded empires using gold that wasn't truly there. Cities grew, trade exploded, wars were financed, and entire nations were reshaped. The modern world was being built on a foundation of imagined money. But wealth built on imagination has a dangerous weakness. It only works as long as everyone believes in it. One rumor, one panic, one spark of doubt, and the entire illusion collapses and collapses. It eventually did. History is filled with the echoes of these collapses, from bank runs that wiped out fortunes to economic crises that toppled governments. The story of the goldsmith is not just a tale from the past. It's the blueprint for the financial system we live in today. It reveals a fundamental truth about money. Its value is not in the metal or the paper, but in our collective trust. Understanding this story is the first step to understanding the world of finance, the booms, the busts, and the invisible forces that shape our lives. Ever wonder where money really comes from? It's not a mine or a treasury. It's an idea born from a crisis in 1600s England. The kingdom was drowning in debt. King Charles II was spending fortunes, especially on wars, borrowing heavily from London's Goldsmith bankers. But one day, the bankers said no more. The king's reaction: he simply took their gold. He froze all deposits. Panic erupted. People stormed the Goldsmiths, waving their paper receipts, demanding the gold they were promised. But the vaults were nearly empty. The bankers had lent out far more gold than they actually had, creating wealth out of thin air. For the first time, the world witnessed a full-scale bank run. It was absolute chaos. But from that chaos, a new power emerged. A group of wealthy merchants saw an opportunity. They went to the king with a revolutionary proposal: a new kind of bank. This institution would lend the king money and issue its own paper receipts, or notes. But these notes wouldn't just be backed by gold. They'd be backed by the full faith and authority of the government itself. This was the birth of the world's first central bank, the Bank of England. And it changed everything. Suddenly, wealth wasn't just metal in a vault. It was a system, a controlled mechanism that could expand or shrink on command. The bank's notes were accepted everywhere. It financed empires, funded industries, and introduced the concept of national debt. For the first time, a country could create money far beyond its physical resources. Wealth was no longer tied to gold, but to promises. This new power had consequences, with the ability to create money from ink. Wars got bigger. Governments got hungrier. Economies boomed. But they also became incredibly fragile. Behind every market crash, every financial crisis, stood this one quiet invention: the ability to make wealth appear from nothing. Over the centuries, this system spread from Europe to America, evolving from paper notes to digital numbers. Today, when you swipe your card or make an online payment, no gold changes hands. No vault door swings open. It's just numbers changing on a screen. Debts and credits are created in a digital world, with trillions of dollars moving without any physical reality behind them. But the fundamental truth is the same as it was in that 17th century goldsmith shop. Only a tiny fraction of the wealth we think we have actually exists in physical form. Our entire modern society, our homes, our technology, are stable. It rests on a fragile foundation of belief. Belief that the system works. Belief that our money has value. Belief that somewhere, someone has the gold, even when we know they don't. Just as those early merchants trusted a paper receipt, you trust the number glowing on your phone. And just as kings borrowed more than they could ever repay, modern nations are sinking in debts they may never escape. For all its hidden dangers, this system allowed humanity to build the world we know today. It financed revolutions, built cities, and created opportunities gold alone never could. So, is this system our greatest invention, or our most dangerous illusion? History whispers a warning. If that collective belief is ever broken, the collapse that shook London centuries ago could happen again, but on a global scale. The real power in finance isn't gold, paper, or code. It's belief. And as long as that holds, our world keeps spinning, built on a truth that's been hidden in plain sight all along. Thanks for watching. If this made you think, hit that subscribe button for more stories that change how you see the world.